and generative discussion after Carrie's presentation today. So on behalf of Laura Lynn and myself, welcome to our January Campuses Lab Community of Practice. We're really excited to have you here, and we're excited to say we have a number of lovely webinars lined up for the remainder of 2021. And we're always open to new ideas. So if you'd like to share some work that you're doing around Campuses Lab, please do let us know. We're also planning to do some interactive workshops during the summer months. So if you have ideas for different Campuses Lab challenges you'd want to workshop with other practitioners and academics, do let us know. So Lauren and I will send out some more information about that shortly, but wanted to plant a seed today with those on the call. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Carrie for her presentation and look forward to the discussion afterward. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Rochelle, and thank you and Laurelyn for inviting me to speak with you today. And thank you all for joining. Due to previous teaching commitments, I haven't always been able to make meetings of this group, but I've learned a lot from you all. Somehow I lost my presentation. Oh, there it is. Okay, can you guys, sorry, see the presentation? It disappeared for a second on me.
I can't see it on the screen right now. I just see you right now, Carrie.
Okay, so let me do this. Bear with me for a second. Let's see.
No problem, take your time.
Apologies. Hopefully you can see it now.
I can see it now. It's in presenter view.
It's in presenter view. Okay. You would think after a semester of doing this.
Well, we also tested it in advance of the call, so we checked all the due diligence boxes, so it's all good. It will work out.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. How about now?
That's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
Well done.
All right. Apologies again. I don't know what happened. That was weird. Okay, but thank you for having me. And thank you all for all the wonderful resources that you shared. And I'm excited to chat with you more about this program and just bounce ideas off of you as well. Today I want to speak about a program for Rutgers graduate students, both PhD and Masters, which is funded by the National Science Foundation's Research Traineeship Program. As you'll hear, the goal of the program is both to connect students from throughout the university to each other and also connect them to a variety of communities and stakeholders across New Jersey. As a land-grant university and a member of New Jersey's Sea Grant Consortium, part of the mission of our institution is to support New Jersey residents throughout the state. So in some ways, the entire state is our campus. What I thought I would do today is kind of start with what motivated this program, then speak a little bit about how we run the program, and then end with some of the impacts that we've seen. This is just a slide I always have in, but I think we can all agree that climate change exists. It's going to have major impacts on the planet, and basically where you are and will depend on what kind of impacts there are. As a coastal state here in New Jersey, flooding and sea level rise pose a major threat to many of the areas of the state. This is further emphasized in a study by Halligan et al., which listed the Newark, New York area as number 8 of the top 20 most exposed cities to flooding. Of course, as you can see from this list, this is not only New Jersey that's threatened by these hazards. In fact, about 380 million people currently live within 21 feet of the high tide line, so are very vulnerable to permanent flooding from sea level rise over the next couple centuries. Moreover, this danger continues to grow. So this is data that was put together by Climate Central and Zillow. And what this shows are areas of housing growth where housing growth rate is 10-year, excuse me, the housing growth rate, and where it's growing, whether it's in a flood risk area or a safer area. So those states in gray have no data. In blue, the housing growth from 2010 to 2017 in flood risk areas was slower than in safer areas. And the brown indicates where home growth was equal to or faster in flood risk areas than in safer areas. And of course, how dark brown the state is indicates how much faster. So as you can see here in New Jersey, we are a fairly dark shade of brown. We're about 2 times to 3 times faster in the risk zone than in safer zones. So this is a problem that's definitely not going away anytime soon, as more and more people are going to become vulnerable. So how do we prepare for and recover from disasters like these along the coast? Well, we need a clear understanding of both societal risk from various threats and strategies to increase resilience, which we can get by engaging in usable research. So science that's credible, relevant, legitimate, and iterative. However, as academic institutions, we can't do this all ourselves, right? We need to engage in co-production of knowledge with boundary organizations and stakeholders. This is probably not new stuff to you all on the call, but just kind of making sure I'm on the same page. This slide here I added because it also reminded me to mention that we also need to be cognizant that this research can also produce undesired outcomes. So that we really need to focus on the relationship with those living in the area and the potential impacts of our decisions on these individuals. So in order to engage in this kind of research and protect our communities, there's a need to train scientists to engage in usable science with deep integration of stakeholder engagement throughout the process. Housed within the Institute of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, C2R2 complements disciplinary training by providing opportunities and expertise necessary to foster dispositional knowledge and skill-based outcomes that lead to whole system, transdisciplinary coastal climate risk solutions. In doing this, we hope to prepare the future workforce of leaders in transdisciplinary research and stakeholder engagement who possess the skills and cognitive skills and social and communication skills to advance innovative and science-based approaches alongside decision makers and stakeholders, moving beyond these short-term problems and all this political discourse towards forward-thinking integrated solutions. So to do this, we support students in a couple different ways. The first is in systems thinking. So one of the things we found that even at the graduate level, students still often don't have an integrated picture of how the entire system works. They're still very disciplinary focused. So when I have them at the beginning of a semester, I ask them to draw the different elements of climate change. They almost always draw it from their disciplinary lens and not from not outside of that. So we're working to kind of help them move beyond these disciplinary and academic boundaries. We're also working to create trading zones of knowledge to exchange information and knowledge across disciplinary boundaries. And ultimately to help create kind of agents or a person who's familiar enough with the language of 2 or more cultures, here disciplines, to facilitate trade of information. And then the last thing we're trying to work on is learning the language of modeling alongside new disciplinary knowledge. So I'll talk more about that in a second here. Because resilience occurs right in a complex socio-ecological system, The C2R2 students are trained to interact with models that in a way that help facilitate their learning, as well as interdisciplinary discussion and community engagement. Students' mental models are made visible through this concept mapping software called Mental Modeler. And they can function as a kind of boundary object to bridge ideas across discipline and knowledge sources so they can share these models with each other. But it also helps them connect components of the different system themselves in their minds. So what I thought I'd do is this video does a kind of this is the tool that we use, Mental Modeler, and it does a nice job of kind of explaining better than I can kind of the point of using these models. So I thought I'd just play that for you if it works, hopefully.
Modeler. I hear you. What is it? Mental Modeler is an easy-to-use, free, online systems modeling software that helps individuals and groups capture their knowledge about complex environmental or social problems to increase their decision-making power. Mental Modeler is based on fuzzy cognitive mapping, which is a form of concept mapping where users can develop qualitative static models that the software translates into semi-quantitative dynamic models that are useful for running what-if scenarios. With these scenarios, users can create models that are useful for determining possible outcomes of decisions, policies, or to predict system-level changes. Representing and sharing different people's ideas about a problem helps us understand assumptions, commonalities, and differences, which helps us capture the collective intelligence of groups and improve collaborative problem solving. Mental Modeler lets you build fuzzy cognitive maps easily and intuitively, and has been used in a variety of decision-making contexts ranging from understanding factors that influence cancer risk, to tsunami planning in the Pacific, to education.
Okay. So as you can hopefully tell by the video, models like these created in Mental Modeler provide an opportunity for learners to make their ideas visible, open for discussion, negotiation, revision, and extension. So it supports this kind of constructive discourse.
Modeler.
There we go. So along with the theoretical background, another thing that we're trying to do is like this, form a community of practice of students and faculty as well, who are interested in resilience. And so in terms of the students that are involved, we have them in 5 different cohorts. So most of them are, they all are first or second year graduate students. So we try to get them at the beginning of their program. And as of this fall, we have had 5 cohorts with, which is about with 34 students total. So it's about 5 students per cohort. And as you can see, these are all the disciplines that they come from. And so the idea is to get a whole bunch of disciplines together, to get all these different perspectives together. And the nice thing is it's really worked well, and we've actually been able to get students from throughout the university interested in the program. To further support the community of practice, we also have professional development events and networking events, meetings that we get the students together, which they've also said has really helped them in terms of not only thinking about their own research, but also they have formed their own kind of social community. A number of them ended up living together, or they started a Facebook group together. So it actually has blossomed into something even beyond what we had expected. So not to overdo it with videos, but now that I've provided a kind of the perspective of the overall program from somebody who's, you know, an instructor and the administrator of the program, I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to share how the students view the program. Recently, one of our students, Zoe Kitchell, created a video for us that touched on what C2R2 is, how it's impacted her and some other students as well. So let me try to show this to you now.
October of 2012, Hurricane Sandy rattled the mid-Atlantic. Sandy came, the most destructive natural disaster ever to hit the state of New Jersey. It was a perfect storm. Persistent northeasterly winds combined with astronomically high tides. The storm and subsequent flooding damaged homes, sunk over 1,000 vessels, and ravaged drinking water, wastewater, and transportation infrastructure. Many areas are still recovering now in 2020, physically, economically, and socially. The story of Sandy is not unique. In the United States, 23 million people live within 6 meters of sea level. In many parts of the country, sea level rise has already led to an increase in the rate of nuisance flooding. These events, increasing in frequency and intensity, have brought to light the challenges coastal communities face and will continue to face as sea levels rise and climate patterns continue to shift. In response, professionals with diverse backgrounds in the Rutgers University community teamed up to prepare a new generation of professionals for 21st century challenges at the coast, which will require creative, transdisciplinary collaborations. The Coastal Climate Risk and Resiliency Traineeship teaches students that coastal resiliency requires integrating expertise from many fields, ranging from urban planning to climate science and oceanography, from engineering to sociology and economics. The program uses New Jersey as a case study, a state diverse in demographics, landscapes, biological communities, and culture. Coastal areas are key to the state's economy. In addition to discussing strategies for conceptualizing, communicating, and solving problems in the classroom, students travel through the state, meeting municipal, industry, environmental, and community leaders to see the challenges that they face firsthand. Through the program, students are exposed to diverse obstacles and trained to design creative and innovative solutions.
My name is Elena, and I'm a third-year Ph.D. candidate in the Rutgers Geography Department.
My name is Zoe Kitchell. I'm in the Ecology and Evolution Department, where I study the impacts of climate change on fisheries, but also fishing communities.
So, my name is Brittany. I am pursuing a dual master's degree in landscape architecture and ecology and evolution.
So, I'm Carolyn Wicki. Currently a second-year Ph.D. student in ecology and evolution at Rutgers.
My name is Dominic. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the Rutgers School of Engineering. I study civil engineering and environmental engineering.
I'm Carrie Ferraro, and I'm the Associate Director for the Coastal Climate Risk and Resilience Traineeship here at Rutgers, or C2R2.
I decided to apply for the C2R2 program because I wanted to help the shoreline, because I'm a resident of New Jersey and spent my entire life here, and I thought that after Hurricane Sandy, we need to start prioritizing our infrastructure.
I didn't want to pigeonhole into that landscape architecture silo. I really want to be able to communicate with people from different backgrounds, for me to focus on just the physical environment or just the human dimension or just the climatic dimension. And so I kind of was seeing something that would bring me out of my specific discipline.
I applied to C2R2, because it interests me, because I do like working at the intersection of fisheries science and social science and policy.
The professional network is really important to me. Knowing people in different disciplines, I think is really helpful, especially going on to projects in the future that are going to have diverse project teams.
I just get to know more people with Rutgers and colleagues in those different fields.
I also really enjoyed that students learn to appreciate not only the differences in thinking that those from other disciplines and, more importantly, perhaps stakeholders bring, but also how critical it is to incorporate these differences when identifying solutions.
C2R2 has helped me a lot with my communication skills, and also this kind of the work for me to understand policy and government.
Major takeaways from the C2R2 program are a strong influence on communicating with decision makers and understanding climate science.
C2R2 has changed my perspective on issues of global change and climate change because it helps me to see other people's points of view.
It's just something that does inherently interest somebody like me who likes to work with the boundaries of a lot of different fields that normally don't talk to each other.
I believe that the program has given me more options in my career because I no longer have to go into just the regular engineering practice. I'm more open to resilient practice and coastal engineering practices.
Students are really eager to work on research that will make a difference in the lives of the local and global community.
In thinking about coastal issues, we have to think about how the social science intertwines with the biological science. how these different communities will be impacted.
Community,
Innovative,
diversity,
Perspectives.
collaborative,
Connections.
Transdisciplinary.
cutting edge,
Students have truly formed a community.
fun,
Communication.
creativity.
Okay, so as I said, often students say things better than their instructors, and I think that this was a good example of that. I thought that Zoe really captured kind of the essence of the program, as well as a lot of the impacts that we've found in our evaluations, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So now that I've talked about some of the theory of the program, I thought maybe I'd kind of dive in a little bit more into how everything works in practice. So along with engaging in this kind of use-inspired research, our C2R2 students are required to take 4 courses, the foundational transdisciplinary course and the 3 stakeholder engagement courses that are listed there. And also 3 elective courses. So 1 course in natural systems, 1 in socioeconomic systems, and 1 in engineered systems. And the point of that is so that they can kind of understand the language of the disciplines outside of their own, and kind of the way that the different disciplines look at a problem and approach a problem. So more information on the core courses. The transdisciplinary course is the first course that they take when they come. This course aims to not only provide the students with a view of risk and resilience research from multiple fields, but also to help provide them with the skills to move from this disciplinary research where everybody's in silos, to more interdisciplinary research where universities working together, but stakeholders and decision makers are outside, to transdisciplinary research. And so what I find really interesting is that whenever I talk to people, everybody has a different definition of transdisciplinary research. So before I kind of share what mine was, I thought maybe what we could do is if you could just share there's not that many of us, either share out loud or in the chat box, some element of research that you think makes it transdisciplinary. Anybody want to share, or have maybe if you haven't heard what you haven't heard the term before, that's okay too. Maybe you can even say that.
I would say, I think the transdisciplinary piece, you're starting with the question together, not necessarily with a disciplinary view.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I would say is that, at least for us, we kind of struggle with getting to this transdisciplinary level, and it's like the holy grail of where we want to get to in sustainability education in our colleges. But what we see a lot is people get really stuck in multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, and don't honestly know what the difference is between those. And then, so it really takes a senior leadership role to kind of enforce and promote and advocate for this transdisciplinary movement. And that in and of itself is a focus that's really hard to get right now.
I can't agree with you more, Joe. Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else?
This is Christina. I think our goal in transdisciplinary thinking is when we in our siloed disciplines actually start to change the way we think based on our interactions with people from other disciplines. So you get to something new, a new solution to problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds hard. We shouldn't do that. No, I'm obviously just kidding. Some levity for the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it is so hard. And I agree exactly with what you said, Joe. And at the end of the presentation, I think well, we can talk about that a little bit more as well. But you all basically nailed some of the elements that I consider when I'm talking to the students about transdisciplinary research. So the idea of that it's done with both everyone together from the beginning, from defining the problem all the way to the solution phase, and not kind of siloed, and then at the end, okay, oh, you come with a solution and you bring it to others and they're like, this won't work. So the idea of making it collaborative, the idea that what Christina mentioned, that kind of like making these new methods and these new ways of thinking, and integrating not only, academic knowledge, but also traditional knowledge and local knowledge into the project as well. Yeah, and as Joe said, really kind of moving from this multidisciplinary layer where everybody's kind of working side by side, but maybe you're on the same project, but they're not really talking to each other, or to the interdisciplinary where you're all kind of working together, which is great. So you're all mixed. When the fruit bowl here is a good example of that. To transdisciplinary, where everything is blended together, everybody is you're making something new, something different.
I have to say, Carrie, sorry to interrupt, but I love that model. I use food as analogies all the time in my work. I have a salsa analogy for the work that we do. So I hope you don't mind if I just steal this outright.
Oh, please do, because I stole it from somebody else. I was like, this is a great analogy.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really well done. So yeah, so after they take this transdisciplinary course with me, they take a communicating with decision makers course, which is taught by one of the members of our School of Planning and Public Policy, and one of our extension specialists who works with the communities directly. The goal of this course, unlike a lot of communication courses, is not necessarily to focus on grammatical accuracy, or this is how a slide should look, but more about focusing on how you instill trust and empathy and confidence in your audience, about how you can appreciate that values and not science are usually the bigger drivers of decision making, and also kind of how to build these relationships based on listening, and picking up social cues with stakeholders, and just a general, how in general to demonstrate personal integrity, and show willingness to collaborate with stakeholders. So after leading kind of the theory from the transdisciplinary and communication courses, the students participate in a 2-week field course. The course focuses on current efforts underway in planning for resiliency along the New Jersey shore. And there we kind of try to immerse the students in challenges faced by the different shores of New Jersey. And so if anyone thought, New Jersey is kind of a homogenous place, this is just a silly, one of the less rude ones, the more appropriate ones, I should say, that I could show maps of New Jersey and how it pans out. And by the fact that even different parts of Jersey call the same thing by different words. So up north, one of those sandwiches is a sub. In central Jersey, which is where Christina and I are, it could go either way, whether you're a sub or a hoagie, which is what they call it in southern Jersey. So there's lots of, even the language is different in the different parts of New Jersey. So we try to, expose the students to this, that, there's all stakeholders in different municipalities are different. And so you need to really address the local community. So as part of this course, they and I think Zoe mentioned in her video, they travel throughout in kind of a van, just travel throughout New Jersey. So they go places like Long Beach Island, which is a barrier island off the coast of New Jersey, a very heavily built up barrier island. And while there, they get to chat with municipal leaders and see talk to them about some of the issues that they face and some of their planning. And also residents, speaking with locals. They also visit a wildlife reserve. So they get to hear from, a ranger's perspective or the refuge manager's perspective, kind of what's happening to the refuge itself and how they're working to protect that in the natural environment. They travel to all different parts of New Jersey, Monmouth County, Cumberland County, Atlantic County, and Cape May County, where they meet with members of the Office of Emergency Management and Planning. Again, just all different municipal officials. They have meetings with the Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy. They also visit other, research centers outside of Rutgers. So they go and visit and talk to other research centers at other universities. And they also meet with businesses. There's one particular one that they typically meet with called Jetty, that's trying to be a small sustainable business, and kind of speaking about what are some of the challenges of that as well. One of the trips that the students typically say is the most meaningful or impactful is the trip to Newark. Not because they meet with PSE&G officials, but more because they interact with the Ironbound Community Corps. And so this is really about kind of social justice and environmental justice, and kind of the understanding of what's happening to the residents of Newark because of things like the large dock there, and also a lot of the plants that give off or that are dangerous and giving off smoke, all the asthma and everything, are located in Newark. And there's typically a lower socioeconomic residents in that area. And so how do we protect these areas? The picture on the left there is of the Passaic Valley Sewer Commission, sorry, that collects, wastewater from across the area and is brought here to Newark into these open pools, which, as you might be able to see, is right by the ocean. So as soon as things flood, these pools of wastewater are in danger, or can come out of the pools, and the residents are vulnerable to this. So it's kind of a dangerous situation. The last of the core courses is the studio course. And so this workshop pairs students with a client, such as a coastal community, to assess the risk posed by the client, and to talk about strategies to manage that risk. So in the past, our students have worked with Union Beach, New Jersey. They were given this plan by the Army Corps of Engineers about 15 years ago, something like that, on how to build up this area. So the town gave the plans to our students and said, can you evaluate these plans for us and tell us if this still makes sense? So they did that. What they found is that they really wasn't a good idea, that the plans that were made all those years ago would not be effective, and new construction that the town was building, or planning on building, would actually be impacted. So, but the struggle was that the town, when they gave them the plan, said, we don't want to hear anything bad. So the students had to learn a lesson that we hadn't even anticipated, which is kind of like, how do you provide people with information upon their requests, but also, stay within the boundaries. If you don't want to hear anything bad, we can tell you what we find, but, we have to temper that in some ways, or we have to find a new way to frame it, really. Another studio worked with the town of Perth Amboy. Perth Amboy is also a coastal small city, and it also has a lot of low socioeconomic residents. And so they worked a lot on how can we ensure that these residents are able to get out of the area, and also how can we make just the town more resilient in general. The latest class worked with our state office of planning advocacy. And so to do that, they took 2 coastal towns, and Middletown and Atlantic Highlands. And so they kind of learned a bit about the town, met with the municipal leaders to get to know the town a bit better. And this was all virtual, I should say. So they didn't get to actually visit the town. But then they were able to kind of look at the plans for the town and make recommendations on how they might want to update these plans. So what they ended up doing, and hopefully the link will kind of show up here, is they put together some story maps. Oh, sorry, they work with Keensburg and Atlantic Highlands. So they put together some story maps, which they then presented to the municipal officers, to the mayor at a town council meeting. And then they were able to compare the results that they, close tab, sorry. They were able to compare the results between the 2 towns and kind of the process that they went through, and give that guidance to the Office of Planning Advocacy so that the office themselves can better support municipalities. So what kind of lessons did the students learn about supporting these towns that maybe the Office of Planning Advocacy could use in their support? So that's all the required courses. And so the last thing I kind of wanted to say about this was that because models, like I mentioned before, they're not only used as kind of a boundary object for discussion, but we can also, after taking all these courses or throughout taking all these courses, kind of track their thinking using the models. So we can watch as these models evolve throughout the program. So how does each element of the program kind of impact their thinking? So after the transdisciplinary course, what is their mental model of resilience along the New Jersey coast look like? And then after the communication course, after the field course, and after the studio course, how does that change over time? And what we've done is we've kind of come up with a rubric that we use to kind of to judge these models and understand and quantify the evolution of these models. So along with, the mental models, we've also, for the overall program, done a great deal of evaluation. We have an independent evaluator who's done some front end needs assessment. She has asked the students. We also had gathered some different folks from different state offices, municipalities, government, federal government offices, community groups, and nonprofits, and kind of talk to them about what they were looking for in terms of future employees. So kind of gathering what skills we needed to build in our students. We've also done focus groups with the themes. We do formative surveys with the students, and then interviews with the students, the instructors, and also their primary faculty research advisors. So we've got a bunch of data over the years. So what I thought I'd do is kind of just present a small bit of it so that we can actually have a discussion after this, because I feel like I've been talking for a while. But as you can see, what we've asked them for each cohort is kind of their understanding about how municipalities work to address real world problems. And this is out of 5. So the question was, what extent did participation in the program impact your professional development, with 1 being not at all and 5 being a great deal. So overall, they for all the cohorts have said that they kind of have a better understanding of how municipalities work to address problems. They all pretty much have a better idea of how to think critically about risk and resilience. How to work with stakeholders, which is really something that we were striving towards. Again, they all they feel pretty strongly that they've gained a lot from this program for that. Understanding the process of municipal planning process. So I think, you know, many of us went to school and we had social studies and government and things like that, but how much do we actually really understand or retain of that learning, and what actually goes on? I think that there's probably a lot of us who who maybe didn't retain a lot of that information, and so having this kind of refresher and seeing how it works in real life in action has been impactful for the students. The ability to communicate with different stakeholder groups, as you heard in the video, communication is definitely something that's been impacted, and their ability to integrate theory and practice when looking at adaptation strategies. So we have some data from the end of the program, but overall trainees feel that it does give them this program does give them a competitive advantage over their peers. So they're better able to identify research gaps and stakeholder needs to do more relevant research. Communication, that communication piece comes up where they feel they're better able to communicate the usefulness of their research. And then also the awareness of professional relationships. So the awareness of how important it is to maintain these relationships, these interdisciplinary relationships. Of course, they did acknowledge that there are a few challenges. You know, they had to take extra courses that their peers didn't have to take. And they had to learn a lot more. And then also, you know, as Joe mentioned, transdisciplinary research is not easy. And so that was something that they also struggled with. One of the cool things that we've found out is that we only had 9 students have graduated, because some of them are PhD students. And some of them are masters, and we're about 4 years into the program. That 5 out of 9 students actually entered a resilience related position immediately after graduating. So this may have had some kind of impact on their career path as well. So the biggest struggle that we're facing is having students do this kind of independent research with stakeholders. And, you know, as was mentioned, it's a struggle to work against the institutional structure and incentives currently. So when we interviewed our faculty advisors, it became clear that while they wanted to be supportive of this collaborative direction of their students' work, they viewed these departures from the disciplinary boundaries as detrimental to their students' career, or they didn't really understand what stakeholder engagement or transdisciplinary research was. So what we're hoping to do somewhere in the future is to really more closely integrate faculty into the program, and ultimately maybe host a series of charrettes with the faculty advisors and experts in community engagement, those involved with transdisciplinary research, and even future employers, so that we can develop kind of solutions for overcoming these main institutional barriers. And hopefully in doing so, we can kind of increase at least faculty buy-in, and then maybe ultimately institutional buy-in of transdisciplinary research and the benefits of kind of this type of community engagement. So that was kind of all I had for that. I just wanted to say thank you to Bob Kopp, who is the director of the program and the PI of our grant, Rebecca Jordan, who's actually now at Michigan State University, Clinton Andrews in our planning and public policy, Ji Gong from engineering, Jean Herb also in public planning, Lisa Aumuller, who is the one who teaches our communications course and field course, and she is at the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve, which is kind of an extension arm of Rutgers. Janice McDonald and Sally Bond as our evaluators, and of course all the students, because we couldn't do it without them. And thank you all. And now I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Carrie. That was phenomenal. And I have to say, I'm sitting here wishing I hadn't done my graduate work yet so I could come and participate in your program. Sounds amazing. I'm going to pass it to Joe because he's put a couple of questions in the chat. So Joe, feel free to take one of your questions and share it with Carrie.
Yeah, I apologize to the group beforehand. I'm insatiably curious about all this. So, and likewise with Rochelle, I just would like to get in my time machine and redo my my scholastic experience in this type of environment. You know, you were talking a little bit about the relationship that your students start to build. So my questions are kind of all on the same theme about relationships, right? And about the partnerships and to what degree those are formal or informal. I know that a lot of times in our sustainability, you know, kind of town and gown work, we have these personal relationships that we're able to leverage and kind of sometimes catalyze to the benefit of our students and our community at large. So I'm kind of curious to what degree this program has either formalized or not those relationships that you have, for example, with a wastewater treatment place. And by the way, I'm from Philadelphia. So when you say like people want to go to Newark, I'm like, whoa, no, don't go. And then the other part of this is really about, you know, if they are formal, are there kind of those memorandums of understanding in place? Do you have some type of intentional, you know, networking / mentorship, or, you know, students meet professionals, kind of practicum, you know, expanding upon that transdisciplinary idea into the community. So I know that was a lot. I trust you can interpret it. If you need clarification, let me know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so if I don't answer something, just let me know. So yes, so we have, we more recently have more formal relationships in terms of an MOU with some of the state offices here in New Jersey. But there's a ton of kind of this informal networking and connecting and relationship building, which has been one of the major benefits of working with our School of Planning and Public Policy, that they already have all these connections. So there's often, we're able to, they often hear about jobs and opportunities and internships way before I would. So even students that are in ecology and evolution can maybe go work, you know, at the state or a nonprofit based upon the relationships that especially Jean Herb and Lisa Aumuller have with these local and state institutions. We also have a bunch of speakers. We try to bring in different speakers for the students. And because it's kind of a smaller group, they, you know, get to interact directly with, one of the things we're trying to do is also, I should say, mention, is kind of show them that there's also these non-academic career paths. And so we try to bring in people, believe it or not, someday all those really old professors are just going to disappear and all these jobs are going to open up, right? No. So yeah, so really the value and the opportunity that's out there beyond academia. So bringing in these speakers from outside of academia and having them talk about their path, and also, again, making that intentional connection, you know, call me, you know, when you graduate, you know, and we can talk about opportunities from there. In terms of the research itself, again, we are struggling with, we started out, I'll be honest, with the idea that, yep, our students are gonna go and they're gonna have this kind of community engagement piece of their research. And it ended up now, we're just kind of like, if you have a disciplinary plus element of your research, we're going to call it a win, because even that, we were a little over ambitious in terms of what could be accomplished. Especially, we have a lot of master's students. And so especially at the master's level, because they had to get in and out, and so it's a bit of a challenge. Don't know if I really answered your question. Did I, Joe?
I have so many more, so I'll just say yes.
Okay.
Well, thanks. And Carrie, would you be open to follow up from folks if they aren't able to air their questions today?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Anyone else want to unmute and ask Carrie a question or share an observation? Or feel free to type your message in the chat as well.
I'll put mine.
Carrie?
Hey, Christina.
So I have an idea. I wonder, instead of asking the students to create a stakeholder engagement component per se, which makes me think of a design charrette, I wonder if you could ask them to create a citizen science component, which would accomplish the same goal, but I think it might be easier. And you might go, I mean, it's always easier to go through youth, because youth enrichment, I think, is something that everybody just cares about. I mean, there's like an entire K through 12 system, and there are scouting groups, and there are boys and girls clubs, and there are camps in the summertime. So even if the students like created a design for like a summer camp exercise to do some kind of a citizen science piece, that might be an easier, movement towards the stakeholder, especially if you start to develop a relationship with a particular, say, summer camp or a particular scouting group, or, there's lots of schools that have after school, like daycare programs, enrichment programs. So that might be backdoor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Definitely. I did run a PD for them on kind of how to create these kind of activities. And there's definitely interest in that, but I think there's a lot of interest, especially among these students, with the policy aspect of things. So there's a number of them that are interested in kind of the citizen science youth element, but there's a heavy policy interest here as well. And so that's something that I think has been working with Jean has been a strong part of the program, and maybe thinking about, I like the idea, maybe thinking about how would this be for policymakers, or how, pick an audience and kind of the broader impacts of it in a way, yeah. It's a good idea. Thank you.
We're getting close to the end, but we could have time for one more brief question. If anyone would like to put up their hand, or just feel free to unmute yourselves. I'm looking through to see if anyone has their hand up. I have oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Carrie, hi, Ashwani Vasish. Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Really well done and well thought out. So a question for you. I was thinking about the survey results that you showed. How do you tease out areas for potential improvement in the program? Do you have any ideas on what you might be able to do to strengthen the program going forward?
Yes, definitely. So those were just kind of select things. We asked the students kind of, after each course, we give them a formative evaluation. So, and kind of refine the coursework based on that. They also take kind of a mid-program course, and we ask specifically, what aren't you getting? What aren't you clear about still? Kind of, so to help us refine that. And then at the end of the program, we asked for the same feedback. And one of the things, I'll be honest, that the students still continue to struggle with, and what we're constantly reiterating on, is that model piece. That's been the most difficult piece for the students to really wrap their head around, and how to use it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question. Thanks, Ashwani. Well, wonderful. It looks like we're right at time here. So on behalf of Laura, Lynn, and myself, I want to really thank Carrie from the bottom of our hearts. And also thanks to all of you for making time to be here today and continue this conversation. I'll be on the call a few minutes after if anyone wants to stay and chat. And otherwise, thanks to you all for your participation, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.